All right, well, welcome everyone to the June 28th SIG Node meeting. We have fewer participants than usual today, but that's okay. I apologize, I was out last week. First on the agenda, Vinay, looking for probably feedback from me on the in-place pod vertical scaling. Anything you want to highlight?
Yes, hi, Derek. I think, yeah, I was away for the last couple of weeks. There was a conference last week in Austin. Now back for 1 week, and I fixed the issue that you had found in the unit test, and also the CRI, the spurious field that was there that Mike identified. That was something we put into the KEP and the initial version of the code before 120, where I believe the Windows containers came in. And I missed looking at that one while I was porting things over. So we can remove that safely without any issues. I've already done that. Now, what remains, in my opinion, is identifying the interaction, the question that you had with the CRI interaction on the resize status, how it's generated. I went back and verified with the test that with Docker shim, I see the transitions that I like, but I need to add tests to that. We can't currently close the loop until we have the containerd change in, but probably a partial test is possible. I'll look into that. The other comment, which I think we should nail down, is about the expected behavior of the runtime. I think there is still some fog around what the runtime is expected to do. I'm trying to understand myself whether what we get today when we query, when we look at the C group stats, is that the cached value or is that the enforced value? Because our test currently looks at the C group. It's invasive, it shouldn't be doing that, but in the absence of having the container status implementation, we are verifying that the update has been enforced by looking at the values that's configured on the C group. So I don't know if Peter is here.
Yeah, I'm here too. Peter is too. So I think while looking into the run C behavior, right, like there was a delta between V1 and V2.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is if the update succeeds, then we can assume that the update went through. Otherwise, the runtime will throw an error. That's okay, right? Then you don't need another loop to go and figure out whether it was applied or not.
Okay,
just
so
make sure I heard that properly, when my audio hooked up. So the question I had on there was if the update action was atomic or not atomic from the perspective of the caller. You're saying the desired behavior would be that it's atomic, but right now on V1 it might not be, and in V2 it is.
So are we only touching memory and CPU here?
Yes, the memory example I put in there was because it's the most explicit way of seeing what happens, and I believe that's what I demoed in the the KubeCon Barcelona when I showed the earlier design of this. So you try to run a stress test that allocates beyond the limits that you have, and the ohm killer comes and whacks it. Now, that's okay, but
I think the reason, so the reason I'm asking is to address like Derek's transaction question.
Yeah.
If we are only worried about memory and CPU,
yeah,
then if on the run C side and like any implementation side, if we update memory first, and I think we can get transactional behavior, right? Because CPU is compressible and memory is the one that is likely to fail.
Yes.
But if we start adding other ones, then it might become trickier. But
we should,
for the short term, we can.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking long term. So we should probably look for a behavior that's consistent. That's the asynchronous seems to be the, in my mind, the more reliable choice here, which is what I got from you cache and then you apply. That's what I think Peter mentioned in that comment, and that's fine as long as when you query back, it should tell us what the enforced value is. For limits, it's one thing, but for requests, today we have requests, we are locally checkpointing it. And that's what we use as, okay, this is the amount of memory we have reserved for your pod. and that could change to, okay, we'll get that information observed from what the runtime is telling us. Now then I think it's more important for it to be true as opposed to a cache value that we're going to apply this. That will probably result in better behavior, or the correctness of that's what I'm more in C group v2, where we have memory requests. That's where I'm getting a little more concerned about what, and this is something we probably will also make it as a guidance for other runtime implementations as well. So we should probably think through this a bit more.
Yeah, so I guess my bias would be that the kubelet can make an update request, and if it succeeds, the assumption from the kubelet was that it did succeed. I'm not left in a vague state. If I am left in a vague state, then I'm even more wanting the callback from the runtime to tell me how I'm in a vague state, so I can make a call to update again to reconcile. So
yeah,
I'm trying to think about how to proceed on this particular PR though, right? Because we have 2 open implementations that we know will be done and probably need a tweak on run C itself. So
the run C one may not be that hard to implement. It's a challenge of getting it into the CI. But I think that's just for V2, and we'll have to check the memory and CPU ordering. And if you want to do the async one, maybe we can bundle it with the evented plague.
Yeah.
As an async channel to send back the information.
That would be desirable. But for now, as far as the update container requests, the behavior goes, I think I tried this before. This is more applicable or relevant when there is a series of, like a pod has multiple containers and we are increasing the memory on one container and decreasing it on the other. In that case, we order it such that, let's say we do the decrease first and then the increase. So even for a brief moment, we are not overshooting the total net end result memory. And if one of those fails, we bail out at that point, and then come back and try the series again later, so that we're not trying to apply something that's downstream that requires an increase when a decrease has failed. So that behavior is there currently in how the multiple containers update is being processed. It's for retaining that behavior where I prefer, at least CPU, I realize it's easier to manage, but for memory, at least we should see if we can do it synchronously, at least try and then fail. If it succeeds, then great.
So maybe it sounds like we all agree there's some fuzziness here we need to clarify. In the interest of not holding up the change particularly well, it's an alpha state. Is it possible, Vinay, you and Mernal, like, get a comment on the PR that says, like, in my view, it'd be good if we can make the update call transactional for the impacted resources, so CPU and memory. And then if we know that that's not fully achievable in run C today, then like get that enumerated as a beta blocker, I guess, but I wouldn't necessarily view it as an alpha blocker. But just getting us writing down what we want to get to, I think, is helpful. And so, like,
we don't.
I'm not aware of any immediate plan to expand this beyond CPU and memory, although I think it's good to think through it. But even memory limits today on V1, I think we still hit this problem. Like, we let you change either value. So
huge pages.
Huge pages aren't overcommitted on a node and are not resizable in the current.
There was a request, I think, in the KEP, when the KEP was in progress, to if we can do this for ephemeral as well. I pushed back to keep scope contained.
For which one? Which resource?
Ephemeral storage.
Yeah.
I don't know the value.
And that won't even be managed by run C. So yeah, let's treat that separately, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Like, get something going for now, enumerate what we want in the end, and then migrate towards it.
Yeah, and I agree this is not an alpha blocker, although we should resolve it before beta. It's feature gets turned off by default. It's not going to harm anyone. and we can always constrain it. Okay, we'll take it one at a time instead of doing a series of containers at a time. We can always do that as a fallback. So,
and then I guess as containerd and runc and any other runtime or cryo or any other runtime implement this, the guidance would be to apply memory before CPU. And that would get us as close to transactional today as possible.
yes.
Yeah. We can also possibly do it in runc. I'll have to check the code when we pass both what order it's applied in. But
Okay.
if we can change that order, it's taken care of.
Yeah, let's iterate over the guidance of this one. I think that's an important piece to add to the KEP.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take a look at.
Can you put it in the CRY API too while you're at it? Just say it needs to be in the right places. I agree.
Oh, like as a
You
comment.
mean- yeah.
Yeah.
If we need, especially if we need to change sequence.
Yes. Once we identify the exact, it should be like 4 or 5 short sentences. I want to get to that, and then yeah. So.
All
Thanks.
right. Well, I'll look at the other
And-
changes you
and
made.
Thanks for the catch.
Yeah,
I'll look at the other changes, Vinay, but I think we're getting close on this one, and this is obviously important. So
Great.
thanks
Yeah.
for
Another more housekeeping logistical question here is this KEP is it's sprawled all over the place. I think we have API goodness from LGTM from Tim, and I want to talk to the SIG scheduling and see, should we break the scheduling piece? It's a very small piece. Should we break it out into its own PR so that it makes it easier to get the LGTMs to merge this? Otherwise, we probably need at least 3 different. We can manage it.
I think it's just in SIG Node. I don't think you need to have a ton of.
No, for the PR to merge, because it's touching its got its fingers everywhere in Kubernetes, I think. So any file I touch that doesn't, there is an owner for that needs to, like SIG scheduling needs to LGTM. We can put it off, right? It's a little bit as thinking more about that as we come close to the entry gates.
I think that would be helpful. Let me just review your last set of changes so that I'm not confused. And then, it is big. It's one of those PRs that we open up and GitHub thinks for a while as you go through.
Yeah, no, only now I'm getting to the logistical part of who all to pester to get this merged, and then it would be easier if it was a separate PR for at least for the scheduling. It reduces the number of LGTMs needed to merge this, and that should be ready, and it should come in. It won't be able to merge until this is in. That's good. That's how it's going to flow.
Yeah, so I was good with the API and quota pieces, and the scheduler piece I agree wasn't that complicated. So if we nail down the last set of the node stuff, then I think maybe a rapid fire breakup of like discrete PRs would be quick.
I could do that. I'm running 3 separate branches for each of the major pieces anyways, internally.
All right, well, let's get a comment on there just describing the runtime behavior and a comment on the CRI itself that says recommended order.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks so much, Vinay and Mrinal and Peter and others, Mike, for chiming on this.
Thank you.
Next topic, I think, Brett.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So just a little bit of background here. The special resource operator is meant to manage out-of-tree kernel modules for Kubernetes and for us as well in the OpenShift space. But we have got approval from SIG Node last year to create a repo, and then from there work on transitioning a code base into that space in order to continue with upstream development. As we started working more with the code base, we realized that we had a couple of issues that we ran into with security and also certification on our side, supportability. So we decided to refactor the code base into something that is more Kubernetes friendly and also would allow us to be able to contribute upstream more efficiently and have our partners participate in that space more effectively as well. As a result of that, we also went through renaming with the community to rename this operator, and we came away with the kernel module management operator as the new name for this. So the request for the meeting today is to see if there are any objections to renaming that repo from the special resource operator to the kernel module management operator. And once that rename takes place, then we can start pushing our code base that we've been developing into that space and begin working out of there going forward. And just want to put that out as a proposal, not very technical, but want to get everybody's thoughts on that.
Yeah, so my first ask would be, if I recall, it was folks across NVIDIA, Red Hat, maybe others who were working in the community for this. And we had a presentation from Svanko at NVIDIA on like what the operator as envisioned was going to be. I guess I'm trying to figure out if the name change implies a change in vision, and if there's like a representative README that you could provide that explains the change. Because I guess aside from the rename, it's not clear if like the ask is changing scope of any kind. Does that make sense?
It does. The scope of what we're looking to do with this operator actually reduces in footprint, and the idea behind this was to simplify the code base, make it more friendly to use. But for those that may not know the historical background of SRO, it was primarily Helm-based, and the original idea behind SRO was to use that as a stepping stone to then instantiate other partner solutions inside of Kubernetes. And so as we started to reverse that path, we realized that that's not a sustainable support experience, and it's not something that would become over long term an easy way to manage. And so as we were looking to push the code upstream, we were removing all references to partner-specific Helm charts to deploy their solutions, and we changed our consumption model to be something more along the lines of we're just going to deploy and manage the life cycle of your kernel module and device plugin inside of Kubernetes. And so the partner themselves would build their orchestration piece inside of their operator, which would then have SRO as a dependency. As we made that strategic change, we then decided to, hey, this is an opportunity for a rename and an opportunity for us to simplify things.
Yeah. So, is it possible? I know you have a link to, I guess, the project meeting that was being maybe. I guess
we have a link into our community meeting notes in there where we've discussed the proposal, the change, the rename, the agreements that took place there. I don't have a specific README there today that describes the differences between what SRO originally proposed versus what we're doing with KMMO. KMMO itself it's just a fraction of what SRO was intended to do from a Helm perspective.
Yeah. So that's fine. I think I just it's important this is like understood or transparent, and like if we deviate from what we originally presented, we clarify it. So would you be kind enough, maybe the folks that were participating in the community meeting, to like write up that README and send it to the mailing list, and
sure.
Folks can have a chance to review it, I guess, in the same way that we had a chance to review the original presentations from Svanko.
Absolutely. And Quentin, who's on the call with us today, is our lead in that community space, and he's also got some slides that we can share around KMMO, the design behind KMMO, and the use of KMMO.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Brett, and the group that was exploring that space. And let's just do that as a step forward before proceeding, to make sure there's no disagreement on folks if it's substantially changing the nature of the project as presented.
Sure.
All right. So moving up next, Adrian, looks like you are ready to be merging your implementation PR. Is that right?
Yeah. So Derek, I'll make a final pass and then I'll hand it to you for approval.
Okay.
We are close. Yeah. Adrian, anything else you want to add?
No, that's exactly it. There are a couple of reviews, positive reviews have been done, and so now the final approval is is missing, waiting for. That's all there is currently. Yes.
Okay, and then since it came up in the CAP review, I guess this exposed a new endpoint on the kubelet server process. Like I guess Renal, if you can just make sure that it's not open, like that. I guess I forget what we said for securing that endpoint, but that would probably be what I would focus on.
You mean beyond the node, right? Like it's just locally.
Yeah, like I thought this had a new REST endpoint you could hit on the kubelet server process that said do the checkpoint.
Right.
Am I not mistaken?
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought Tim Auclair had some questions on how it was secured, so I don't know if we've deviated or anything on that. So I don't know, just look at that closely, I guess.
Sure.
Awesome. And then the last topic here was Swati.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is related to topology-aware scheduling work. We had a discussion back in 2020 to get a repo created for populating CRD-based API that is consumed by the two components that are part of topology-aware scheduling. I had proposed a PR to kind of populate that repository. But the feedback at the time that we got was that it'll be better to pursue these components out of tree. And that is what we've been doing so far. So we have NFT topology updater component, which is part of NFT, which is consuming this API, and topology-aware scheduler plugin, which is in the scheduler plugins repository. So both these components are part of projects that are under Kubernetes SIG umbrella. And we've been, like they are consuming API that is part of an external GitHub organization, which is what we created to unblock ourselves. So I just wanted to bring this discussion back to SIG Node to see if it makes sense to maybe pursue the direction again and populate these APIs or this API again. And I think the issue has been linked as part of the agenda, and I have a bunch of PRs as well, but just want to see if it makes sense to go ahead in this direction.
I'm trying to remember our past discussions on this, so I apologize.
No problem. Is there anything I can do to help that?
Well, maybe others on the call have a fresher memory. I recall so the flow on this was we had APIs that allowed you to introspect kubelet assignment, and then the KEPs had explored building layers on top to do topology-aware scheduling. Yeah. I don't recall if we had the intermediate step that said, should we create that as a repo in KSIGs or not? Or is the ask that did we create the repo and the repo just never got populated?
Exactly. So we got approval to create the repo, but at the time we were proposing that the scheduler plugin be within Kubernetes itself as an entry plugin. So it was suggested that we explore these two components, which is one component is the component that exposes the information on a per NUMA basis, and the other one is the scheduler plugin that consumes this information, and in order to make a topology-aware scheduling decision. So the question here is if we should pursue populating that, because the API itself, the repo itself was created but never populated.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, did anything deviate from, was it an issue that we've learned something since the original plan and approval to create the repo was done that made us act differently? Or is it just a matter of like the folks working in the space lost capacity at that time to go do it?
Kind of both. I think we didn't have capacity to pursue this. And the other reason was that previously we didn't have the components per se that were consuming APIs, and they weren't mature enough. It was just early phase essentially consuming APIs that were created on like random forks and things like that. Then we created like a dedicated GitHub organization for topology-aware scheduling work. And the API has been relatively stable since. And we've had out-of-tree components that have made their way into appropriate repositories, one of them being NFD and the other one being a scheduler plugin repository.
Yeah. I don't know how others feel. I don't see a reason to deviate from what was already, I guess, thought through. But my own memory is a little weak right now on this. Does anyone else have opinions on this?
I think it would be good to move those API definitions out of external organization to Kubernetes 6, because that means we can use with all CNCF infrastructure for like approvals, reviewers, things for automatic mergers and so on. So it's a good step forward, I think.
I guess when I look at the linked PR here, basically this is being treated like the CRI. It's in the main repo, but then getting synced out in staging.
That's right. Yeah. So the proposed API would be within the Kubernetes project would be in staging, and then it would be the publishing bot would create a mirror of it in under Kubernetes organization.
Yeah.
That's what under Kubernetes, it's the core APIs usually. So for any kind of service, it's usually Kubernetes 6, isn't it?
Again, I'm not sure. Previously, it was suggested to us that the CRE-based API be part of Kubernetes organization. I'm not sure how, if we were to propose it under Kubernetes SIG, we would run into circular dependencies because we have those components already under Kubernetes SIG, and then they'd be consuming an API within the Kubernetes SIG, I believe.
No, usually like if it's part of Kubernetes SIG, it's probably it's okay. It's more what like if you have it in Kubernetes organization, then it can be used for entry like code, like core components.
Yeah.
Kubernetes 6 means it will be used only by external components. Wow.
Yeah, so that's the current state. The current state is that we have external components consuming that API, but in the long run, we might want actually to have internal components. So the scheduler plugins that are outside currently might become native scheduler plugins as well.
Yeah, so I think that was the reason to like pursue to get it in Kubernetes organization, if I remember correctly. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like we had discussed this back in November 2020.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair that each of us just takes a moment to refresh what our thoughts were. But I guess my own feeling, and Swati, was like, it's been a weird few years, and so it's good that people are able to pick this up now. And thanks, Alexander, for plus wanting it. I'll just quickly look through on what the history was, but it seems fine to me that we should populate it, particularly if we have folks in the community willing and able to work on it.
Okay, so will I wait for kind of a lazy consensus on this, or will I wait for someone's update on one of, like, even an acknowledgement on these PRs?
I'm just, as we're talking here, going through the old community related changes on the repo creation request and make sure I'm then can look at that
Perfect.
PR. I don't know if I have who has proper permissions to approve the new staging repo.
I think the staging repo, Oh, okay.
Because the
Like that.
staging directory itself will require some higher level approval. So we'll probably need to find somebody outside of just within the SIG at top level. And then maybe the ask would be in the interim, if there's, it looks like you have yourself and at least one other individual as a security contact. If this list is up to date or if others want to be added, that would probably be the only thing I would look at. But yeah, maybe Alex, if you have time, or maybe you can help out, maybe just make sure that we're doing the right things. But it looks like this seems fine to me, so we can. So I can go back on our history. If either one of us can comment on it and say, yes, this seems good, like let's just unblock. Finally making progress, I guess.
Yeah, we'll.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
And then related to, this is a new repo. I'm not sure if there's a weird enhancement thing we need to think through here on this one, but there was nothing going in core kubelet this release related to it. So yeah, is there any impact if we do this now with respect to like the changes in the enhancements process between when this was proposed and now?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you talking
Well, like
about
traditionally,
the
like if we
process?
make a CRI change now, like that goes through like a KEP and it's
Right.
checked into kubecube and now linked to like a KEP template, and we just had the enhancement freeze and that whole thing. Since this will be derived from a staging directory within KK itself, I'm just trying to think through if there was any thing we need to do with respect to the enhancements process to make sure that SIG release is happy. So maybe if we can also, before we merge it, get a release lead to comment if there was something special here we needed to do.
Okay. Yeah, I can try to get someone from the release team to look at it and see from like process perspective if there's anything we need to do.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, buddy.
Thank you.
So I think that's,
it was actually one of the reasons why I commented about Kubernetes 6. It might be a lot easier to get a team and start using it properly without all the bureaucracy related to the staging part. But let's try.
yeah. I just want to make sure we're doing the right things, and that nothing has to be undone or looked at incorrectly, I guess, given all of us getting up to speed on what we thought in 2020. So yeah, with that, I think Swati, just give us some time, maybe today or tomorrow, to refresh, and then we'll comment on the PR and then make sure the release team is good. Any other topics that people want to bring up today? All right. Well, thanks so much for those who brought topics forward, and we'll see you all. I think next week might be the 4th of July holiday in the US. Maybe we should decide if we want to meet next week or not. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people will be here or not. Either way, I guess we'll play it by ear on that Tuesday morning. So for folks who are here next week, we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.